Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Columbus Dynamic Security Management webinar. On the agenda today, on the next slide, we'll be introducing Columbus and who we are, and to increase who will be presenting the demo. We'll go over some whiteboard sessions, the product demo, and we might have a few minutes at the end for Q&A. Next slide, please. So I'd just like to start off with my name is Michael Liu, and I am a To Increase Inside Sales Executive for Columbus, US. And so before we jump into DSM, I'd like to give everyone a brief overview of who we are, who is Columbus. And so Columbus, we're a global dynamics consultancy. We've been in business for over 27 years, and we have over 1,200 consultants and 44 offices serving customers in over 45 countries. And in 2016, we were awarded Microsoft's Global ERP Partner of the Year. It's the 5th time we've received that award. And as you can see on this slide, we have a lot of experience working with the Dynamics space. And on the next slide, you'll see our family of companies that are part of Columbus. So at the top, To Increase, they're our software development company, and you might have seen them, information on their products. They're part of Columbus, and they're the largest ISV for Microsoft Dynamics. So at Columbus, we focus on all aspects of the AX lifecycle, including implementation, upgrade, and post-go live support. So DSM is just one of a portfolio of software solutions that we brought to market to help our customers address key pain points such as user security. So it is designed to help companies address security concerns, license optimization, segregation of duties, and audit compliance. The tool is easy to use, quickly installed, and cost-effective. So with that, I'd like to introduce you to Luciano and Eric of To Increase, who will walk you through the DSM solution. We will not take too much of your time today, so we will reach out to you afterwards to understand any questions you might have and to discuss how we can help you deploy DSM into your 2012 environment. So now I'll turn it over to Lou.
Thank you, Michael, and hello, everybody. So I want to first start just talking about some of the challenges that we see with clients that are implementing ERP out there in the world. Some of the typical issues that we see are internal fraud, with employees of the organization having too much control in different areas of the application in order to be able to take advantage of that. So we see that that happens fairly often, unfortunately. We also see, as part of that, financial losses being put in place, either because there was some IP infringement and IP that was stolen that causes some financial impact to the organization, or maybe because of lack of segregation of duty. For example, somebody's able to create a purchase order and be able to pay themselves, creating some financial losses for the organization. We also see sabotage, because employees that sometimes have access to areas that they shouldn't, they can leverage that information to do things that are inappropriate for the organization. Maybe they're sharing that with a competitor, maybe they're taking action based on that information to be able to cause some damage to the organization. Those are familiar causes that we've seen in this marketplace that I think we want to address for you as part of this conversation. The other three areas that we see fairly often are around more managing the ERP system, in this case Microsoft Dynamics AX, and how those issues are fairly often seen, which causes some of these things that I've just talked about. Like, for example, non-compliance with segregation of duty, not having that separation between the different accountants, for example, within the organization. Or security systems that are hard to implement. So administrators of that system end up giving too much access in order to get people the power or the functionality in the system that they need, which then causes concerns, both because it is hard to manage and maintain, it takes time, as well as the potential for some of the other things that we've talked about. And the lack of capabilities within the system to be able to audit and understand what's going on holistically, for multiple reasons. some because of the issues that we've been talking about, some because of licensing mechanisms. So today what I want to do is, if you think about this realm of areas where we see typically customers such as yourselves having when leveraging Microsoft Dynamics ERP such as Microsoft Dynamics AX, I'm going to talk about how within Dynamic Security Management we're able to help you address some of those issues. But before I go there, I'd like to ask for you guys to fill out a quick poll. I'm going to launch a poll here. If you can, just click it on the screen and let us know which one of these you most see in your organization. So just go ahead and click right there on the screen. And I see the numbers, and you can see how it's all over the place. You see that a lot of what you guys are picking there are specific to the ERP. I'll give just one more minute here for you guys to finish that up. And you can see how one of the biggest ones here, or the biggest ones here, is how hard it is to implement the security measures within Dynamics AX. And I hope that with today's demo, you will see how we've created an application that's very easy to use and implement to help you solve that exact problem. So let me move back to the presentation. And what I want to do now is just walk through a little whiteboard of what I'm talking about. One of the great things about Microsoft Dynamics AX is that it's very flexible. And especially when it comes to security, you're able to become very, very tight in your security aspects of AX. But at the same time, it creates that issue that you saw on the poll a second ago. And why is that? I don't know if we just focus here around the area of security and security management within AX so that we can try and understand that. Everything starts with setting up every little minutia of the system. Because AX is so flexible, you can actually set what we call permissions in every field or record within the tables within the whole ERP system. Well, we call those permissions, and there are 25,000 of those in AX today. So you can actually set up every single one of those individually for different people. Now, if you gather more permissions and you group them together, it's what we call privileges. So multiple sets of permissions together becoming privileges. In AX today, there are over 5,000 privileges that you can already get out of the box. And then, if you go further into multiple privileges together is what we call duties. And there are already in AX over 800 of those already pre-set up. And then when we go further into multiple duties and a combination of duties, it is what we call roles. And there are already predefined more than 80 different roles inside of AX. Now you can start to understand the flexibility of AX, because now you can go to a specific form and a specific field and a specific table and say this person can or cannot have access to that, which is great. But with the number of capabilities that we have here, going from that 25,000 different permissions to privileges to duties to roles, and of course you can create your own combination of privileges, duties, and roles, this can become quite cumbersome and complex. And that's where we've seen with our clients all over the world where they have a hard time managing this. And we've seen cases where security is just wide open, and in other cases where security may be tight, but it takes a lot of effort to get it done. And then what do we see happening normally? What we see is too many admins, too many users in the system that are enterprise users that can do anything and everything in the system and have access to everything, which obviously causes this risk of information leaking and fraud within the system that we talked about. And also this lack of compliance with AI CPA, which talks about segregation of duties and other areas to help you control your risks and mitigate your risks. But the other aspect of this is that you end up using too many licenses. There was a customer that we were working with that they went through an audit with our application, and they actually needed to buy an additional $200,000 worth of Microsoft Dynamics AX licenses because of how they were using their users in the system. So because of trying to give people access and giving them roles, and because of the complication of having to go through what we call menu items and trying to understand all the technical aspects of what is possible for one license or the other, they ended up using too many of the wrong licenses, causing them to have to buy an additional $200,000. You will see today in the next whiteboard session here why, by using DSM, they were able to avoid having to pay that to Microsoft in managing their licensing and their security much better. So let's switch to that. So if you look at how Microsoft Dynamics AX works today, what we're used to seeing, if you go into an application, right, you have maybe a form, and this form has a grid with all kinds of different information and different buttons. Now imagine that each one of these buttons or fields or records within the application has certain security mechanisms, as we talked about earlier. So maybe you have access to some of these fields and somebody else doesn't, or you can press some of these buttons and perform certain actions and somebody else doesn't. The complexity here is that managing that in AX is quite cumbersome, as we talked about earlier. But what if you could just walk through the application, performing the work that you're supposed to do in that particular role, and that just got recorded as you did that work and helped you in understand how to set up the right roles or which roles are more appropriate for that particular function. So in that way, I walk through the application and DSM looks through it and says, based on what you already have set up in the system in terms of roles, maybe the 80 roles that are already available to you, it does a matching for you. And it says, hey, based on the roles you have, there is one that is pretty close, 90% to the activities that you've just walked through. You simply just walk through. You say, record, let me perform a particular activity, and let me see what roles match. And here in this case, we might have found a match. And in the case of the client that we talked about earlier, what they were able to do is, by better aligning the types of activities that people were doing and the roles, and they actually created new roles in order to fit a specific purpose for the people, then they were able to change the licensing structure that they had. In that case, they were able to use less enterprise users, which are more expensive, and use more functional or task users during that audit that they did. So it may be that they are not only focused on making their system more secure, at the same time as making their system more secure, they're also saving in licensing cost, which was the example of this customer that I talked about. One of the great things about AX having all this flexibility and having all of these roles is that you have that control. But one of the things that Microsoft can't do is create every role specifically and pertinent to your organization. So they create generic roles, which may not be a great fit. So being able to, in your company, walk through the particular workflows that your particular employee in that area needs to do, recording that through DSM, it'll help you both match to existing roles and potentially even create new roles for you that fits exactly to your fit, to your needs, in order to help you in managing what we just saw in the poll. 59% of the people said that it was hard to implement security measures. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to transition over to my good friend Eric. And Eric is actually going to show it for you in the system how we can make this work for you and how easy it is for you to be able to run and manage security in a way that, that you haven't seen before. So let me switch over to Eric. Eric?
I'm here. And hold on 1 second. Yep, I'm here. Hi. This is Eric, and nice being a part of this call as well. And I will for sure demonstrate the solution that Luciano just explained. It is situated in Dynamics AX, and what we call it is Dynamic Security Management. And if I open it, yeah, the system will gather some information, first some data about the entry points, but here you see the solution present. And in the solution, like Luciano said, it's quite easy to go from form to form to record what the user wants. And typically what you see is that just some key users for a department says, okay, I will start showing what forms my users need to look at. So what they do, they simply say, and now if I'm a security representative, I will just put the key user next to me and I said, okay, let me show me please what you want to see. So I press start recording, and I can do it in different manners. I can do a recording, and for each selection or what I do, I could ask, okay, what is the security detail that is needed? What kind of rights? Only viewing rights, or maybe delete, edit right, things like that. For now, I will do it, and I will simply start my recording. And after I record, I will go to AX itself, and I will open something, for instance, the users, and this is then a user administrator. I open the grid and I open the detail form of the user, and now I go back to my security management and I stop the recording. This is all that I needed to do for this user administrator. And after I've stopped, the system has recorded all the different entry points for me. Now what I could do is start managing and figuring out roles. I can also get in another key user and do the same thing for me, and later on examining and figuring out the best roles. So what I could do is I could save this recording into an XML file and then use it later. And that's what I actually did with another recording, which I will open, and I will say no, I don't want to save it, and I will use the one that I have here. And this recording shows different menu item displays. Now, what's the next step that I need to do? I want to, with these menu items, and you call them also buttons, for instance, in AX, I want to match these two roles in AX. So I press match roles. In this screen, I have a lot of different information. I can specify, for instance, a minimum access, so no access, view, edit, etc. I can also do a maximum right, but I will leave everything open. I can figure out the non-matched entry points. So if there are non-entry matched, so I can go through certain roles, and if there are roles that only 50% are matched, I can also figure out, okay, what is then not matched. I can load my license and calculate the user license, the remaining parts. So that's what the system will now do. It will go through all the security, and that is a small process that's running now. You see that it's matching the roles. It's only, by the way, matching the roles for that starts with DSM, but normally you can run everything. But because if you work with security, you know, sometimes it will take time, and to take the time or use up the less time as possible, I will use just these DSM roles. And now what you will see is I have my recorded entry points still there, but I also have matched security roles, and that's here in the bottom. And in the bottom I see that these roles are matching the function that I need to do. And here you see the matching theory, like Luciano said. There are 5 roles that could be used for these menu items. One is a 100% match, which is just function users, so I could use this one. There are several ones, the more expensive one, the enterprise users, level ones, they have a 50% match, and a very cheap task user with a 50% match. That's interesting. This one, we could use, of course. Now what is matched? That's what you see here. These 2 functions are matched. And in the bottom, you can also go into more details, figuring out, okay, what is not matched in this case. And now I can work with this task user and figure out, okay, well, I want to make sure that these are the correct ones. And these are the duties that I need. Or I can also start it from privilege level, where I see, okay, which are the privileges that I really like to have. And maybe create my role from this role. Function that I have to create a role is say, okay, I want to leave this role alone, and I will simply say I want to duplicate the role to a new role, and I want to work with that one. Maybe I want to reuse it. But if I don't, and I want to make some additions in a different way and create in a different array role, then what I could do is say, well, I want to use this privilege, And if I press find match entry points, then you see the system, okay, if you select this one, you have this as green. Well, this privilege has a functional user license type, and for the privilege itself, for regular usage, you have a license type of functional users. Now, what's the difference? Well, if I select privileges, and I couldn't create a role based on privileges, then I need to know that I will start creating a role based on privileges based on enterprise users. And sometimes, yeah, you don't want to do this. You just want to create a role based on the selections, and then you have this license type. You can also decide, okay, what is the access level at this time for this privilege, and you can continue selecting all the different parts that you want to add, and then yeah, create a role from there, and it will use the selected privileges, and I can create a much cheaper role with class user license, which of course is quite nice. In the bottom part you see more information like the match privileges on this role and other information, but I don't want to go into much detail because I have not a lot of time to show you this. What I will show you next is something that I see also very commonly used. I want to figure out the roles and the different users that have those roles, and also what their license type is. What you see here is all the different roles that I have in the system, and I can see the duties connected to it, and per duty you can see the privilege, and this is a nice browser. I can export this into Excel to get, of course, more detailed filtering possibilities. I also have this on user level, where I can see all the individual users and also what is their license level at this time. So a lot of functional users, but also some are enterprise users. So also from that end, I can take a look at my security. Sometimes, as a security representative, I get a question asking, okay, my friend Paul next to me, he has access to this form, and I want to have that as well. Now, how do you do that? Well, we create some nice tooling around that as well. Say, for instance, this user detail screen. What I now can do is I right-click, hit personalize, and in personalize, we added something called a security tree. I can open that, and here you see my display menu item. Now, from here, I could check out the related roles that have access. Well, in this case, it is only the system administrator that has the access. I can also go into, okay, what are the privileges that are there, or maybe which menu items again, and I can browse down to the roles and also figure out, okay, who has user rights. So what can I do here? And it looks, of course, a lot of information, but what I can do is I can go to a form, figuring out, okay, what is the form, what is required, and which roles have access to that form, and also the users. And then I can grant access to Paul, who wants to have that form, saying, okay, Paul, good idea, I can connect you to this form as well by maybe adding a role or privilege, or maybe change the role that Paul has and to have it on his colleague. Different areas of figuring out what the security is about. Can we do more? Yeah, for sure we can do more. What we have, for instance, is a security entry point screen, also quite nice. I can select, and this is a role that I created. I select a role, and based on that role, I see in the menu to which area I do have access or not. For instance, accounts payable. And I can see in accounts payable all the different elements. And for instance, I don't have access to the invoice payment journal. But maybe in this role, I want to get rid of the bill of entry journal. Now what I can do is I can right-click on this menu structure, set permissions, and I can grant access. And it was the vendor invoice journal, this one. I can say I want to give no access instead of full control. And if I hit next and apply, then a lot of processes will run. That will take a lot of time, but I can specifically now stop a role having access to this area. And that's quite neat. So do you want to close? Yes. Furthermore, what I can also do, I can open AX based on this role. So if I press OK, I press this Open Security Test Workspace, then AX will open just for this role. Come on. And there we go. Give it 1 second or 5. But then AX will open, and that's what you see here, with this role access. So as a security representative, I can really see what this role has access to. And you see there's really nothing on system administration, but maybe a little bit more on accounts payable. And that's also what you see here. Very nice solutions, very also pretty easy to use. Last thing, what I want to take a look at, because the security log itself. This is for audits. As an example, you see all the different users and role names and when they are being created, assigned. I can also view and show whenever they are removed from the system. Sometimes they still have access, sometimes they are removed, and maybe not removed at all. And at that time you can take actions. This is something that you maybe, what you want to decide, that a certain user temporarily should have access to a certain area or a certain role. Then you grant them temporary access, and in a later stage you remove them. And you can show that during an audit, say, okay, I removed this guy on this date. So that role, that's why I use the role. This was in short what I wanted to show you. Recording, have a security, have insight in your security also based on license types, and and partly also a lot of audit functionality. There's way more. I only shown you a glimpse, but that was my part. So Luciano, I will give it back to you.
Thank you, Eric. And as Eric just said, obviously we can't show you the entire application in just a few minutes that we had today. We'll be happy to engage with you directly and show you more as we go. So today we talked about all kinds of issues that are potentially happening to you guys, and we saw that hard to implement security measures was one of the biggest issues that you had, followed closely by not being able to follow compliance and segregation of duties. And I hope that you got a quick glimpse today on how DSM can actually help you in achieving that. Now, with only a couple of minutes left, and there are several questions, so we'll get back to you guys if we can't answer today, but there was one question here that I think is important that we clarify, which is, what's the effort to install the solution on an existing installation, Eric?
Very minimal actually. I'm a functional consultant and I had a VM running, and it's just importing the model, and you're running, and the system is, you're capable of recording the security and do anything. So it's very minimal to do it. So it's okay. It's just importing a model.
Great. And the other question is, can we also adjust the existing roles in Dynamics AX with DSM?
Yeah, you could do that, but it's not recommended at all. Best practice is creating roles and leave those standard AX roles alone, but copying them, duplicating them into new roles. So you always have those as feedback. So and even we have functionality to lock these roles so nobody can touch it if you have multiple security representatives. Very
good. Thanks, Eric. And I think I'll take this last question and we'll close it. Somebody's saying that they're very interested in asking what the price of the solution. Well, the great thing is that the solution is actually very, very accessible. So just to give you a little bit of an idea, if you've got 100 AX users today, it'll cost you maybe $10,000 to get started. So it is very accessible. And again, you can save on license cost, plus you can save on all kinds of potential issues that you might have as you're leaving the system open. So I think that's it for today. Thank you guys for joining us in this webinar. Feel free to reach out to us and let us know if you're interested in going further with another demo, or if you'd like more information. We'd be happy to reach out back to you guys and continue working together. Hope you guys have a great day.